My girlfriend laughed at my music hobby until her roommate said, if you don't date him seriously, I will. Suddenly, she started acting like she was my #1 fan. My girlfriend Kayla had just insisted I perform something for her roommate's birthday at our apartment. She framed it as a cute idea, like it would be fun background entertainment while everyone hung out, but I could tell she didn't take it seriously. And the reason for that was simple. Kayla had never once asked me about my music. I'd been playing piano since high school, mostly as a way to decompress after long days. And over the past year, I'd started composing my own pieces. It wasn't something I bragged about, but it meant a lot to me. When Kayla suggested I play for her roommate, I spent the whole week planning what I'd perform. I rearranged the small digital piano in the living room, tested the speakers, and practiced transitions between songs so it would feel smooth instead of awkward. I wanted to impress the bazookas out of Kayla and hopefully make her fall in love. But every time I tried to share what I was planning, Kayla simply waved me off. Just keep it chill, she kept saying. Ava doesn't like intense stuff. The moment I started setting up, adjusting the stand and running cables along the wall, Kayla dropped onto the couch and opened TikTok. By the way, don't turn it into a concert, she added without looking up. It's just a chill birthday hangout. I nodded and kept working, trying not to let her tone bother me. I adjusted the keyboard height, checked the sustain pedal, and played a few soft chords to test the volume. Kayla didn't even glance up. She kept scrolling, occasionally laughing at something on her phone. I'd spent months teaching myself more advanced techniques, staying up late practicing, watching tutorials, and experimenting with original melodies. Kayla had never once asked me to play anything unless it was for her social media. When I started running through a piece quietly, she sighed. That's kind of dramatic, she muttered. Maybe do something more casual. I stopped mid-phrase and nodded, even though I knew the piece wasn't dramatic at all. It was just thoughtful. But Kayla had always treated my music like background noise, something mildly interesting but not worth real attention. Wait, are you actually playing live music? The voice came from the doorway. Ava had come home earlier than expected, still wearing her work blazer, her hair slightly messy from the wind outside. She paused in the hallway, eyes moving between the keyboard and the speaker setup. Yeah, I'm just setting up for tonight, I said, adjusting the pedal cable. Ava stepped closer, her expression genuinely curious. This is awesome, she said. I didn't even know you played music. Unlike Kayla, she didn't just glance and move on, which surprised me. She actually stood there while I tested the sound, again, listening carefully as I played a few chords. That sounds really good, she said quietly. Is that something you wrote? I nodded, slightly surprised. Most people assumed everything was a cover. Yeah, it's just something I've been working on. Ava leaned against the counter, watching as I played another short section. I didn't know guys our age even compose stuff. I thought they couldn't, she said. My ex only knew 3 guitar chords and played the same song over and over. I laughed softly, but she kept asking questions. How long had I been playing? Since high school. Did I take lessons? I just teach myself. What kind of music inspired me? The kind about love. She told me she'd played piano when she was younger and always regretted quitting. We started talking about music while I adjusted the volume levels. She mentioned traveling last year and hearing live musicians in small cafes. How she loved the atmosphere and wished she could create something like that. Have you always been this good? Ava asked, leaning slightly closer. I'd honestly love to hear more sometime. My chest tightened slightly. Kayla had never asked that, not once in nearly 2 years of dating. I'd played quietly while she watched TV, practiced in the bedroom with headphones, even recorded a piece for her birthday, and she'd barely reacted. Does Kayla listen when you practice? Ava asked casually. I hesitated. Sometimes, I said, though I knew that wasn't really true. Ava tilted her head. That's surprising. She always jokes that you're messing around with your keyboard. She paused, thinking. Actually, now that I think about it, I've never heard her mention anything you've written. That landed harder than I expected. I practiced almost every night, but most of the time Kayla kept watching shows or scrolling her phone. Ava must have noticed my expression because she smiled gently. Her loss, she said. You've got real talent. I glanced toward the couch where Kayla briefly looked over before returning to her phone. Ava noticed too and gave a small smirk. Looks like someone finally realized you exist, she whispered. I played a short piece I'd been working on, something calm and layered, and she stayed completely still the entire time. When I finished, she let out a quiet breath. That was beautiful, she said softly. Then she raised her voice slightly, glancing toward the couch. Kayla, have you heard this? Kayla looked over, her expression tightening. He plays all the time, she said casually. Ava shook her head. No, I mean really listened. This is amazing. She leaned closer, clearly impressed. If you don't date him seriously, I will, she added jokingly, though her tone carried just enough sincerity. The reaction was immediate. Kayla stood up and walked over, her movements noticeably sharper. Since when are you two having a private concert? She asked, positioning herself beside Ava. Ava shrugged innocently. Since I realized your boyfriend's actually talented and you've been ignoring it. Kayla forced a laugh. I hear him all the time, she said quickly. Right, babe? I didn't respond immediately. Ava tilted her head. Really? Because I've never seen you stop to listen. Kayla crossed her arms. Well, maybe he should play something more upbeat, she said, suddenly critical. That was kind of slow. I reminded her she'd asked me to keep things relaxed. Yeah, but not boring relaxed, she replied quickly. Ava laughed and said, this is the kind of music he likes. Do you even know your own boyfriend? Kayla immediately stepped closer and grabbed my arm lightly. Can we talk? She whispered. Ava leaned back in the chair, clearly amused as Kayla guided me toward the hallway. How long has she been flirting with you? Kayla hissed the second we were out of earshot. She's not flirting, I said calmly. She just likes the music. She's been complimenting you nonstop, Kayla said, folding her arms tightly. I looked at her like she was crazy and pointed out, because you haven't complimented me once. That's not true, she shot back instantly. I support your music. I shook my head. No, you tolerate it when it's convenient. There's a difference. Kayla rolled her eyes. You're just being dramatic. Am I? I asked quietly. When I bought this keyboard, you told me it was kind of a waste because I already had headphones and Spotify. When I spent 3 weekends learning that piece I just played, you told me it all sounded the same and asked me to keep it down because you were watching a reality show. When I recorded that song for your birthday, you listened to maybe 10 seconds and then asked if I could help you pick a filter for your Instagram post. Kayla opened her mouth, then shut it again. And last month, I continued, my voice still calm but firmer now. When I played while your friends were over, you told me to stop because it made the room too serious. You literally told me to go back to the bedroom and use headphones. That's not fair, she snapped. I've always supported you. Really? I asked. Name one time you asked me to play something for you. Just one. She thought, and kept thinking. Then it slowly dawned on her that she'd never done that. Not even once. That's when her tone shifted into something else. Okay, fine. Maybe I didn't make a big deal out of it, but that was intentional. I frowned slightly. Intentional? Yeah, she said quickly, seizing the idea. I didn't want you to get complacent. If I praised everything you did, you might stop improving. I was motivating you. I couldn't help letting out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. So when you called my music background noise, that was motivation? She tried to argue further, but I interrupted her by pointing out the obvious. Kayla, motivation doesn't look like ignoring someone for months and then suddenly acting interested when someone else notices them. She glanced toward the living room, where Ava was still sitting by the keyboard. See? You didn't care until she did, I continued. Now suddenly you're listening. Now suddenly you're critiquing. Now suddenly you want to pull me aside and question her. Her eyes went wide, and instead of arguing, she finally looked down and said, maybe Ava was right. Maybe I don't know you at all. I said, maybe, and walked back to where Ava was pressing random keys to try and sound like me.